Hello and welcome back to the Social Matters podcast. We are three social workers talking about social matters. Hi, I'm Nadia.
Hi, I'm Fran.
Hi, and I'm Eugene.
And today we are joined by Amy. AKA Long COVID Rockstar. And Amy's going to be coming to have a chat with us today. But just firstly, before we dive in, how you doing?
Hi, I'm really tired. Long COVID feels like a hangover from a party you did not agree to go to. So the baseline is just like, oof. But I'm so excited to be here. My heart rate's a little high.
Is that just for seeing us or just generally?
Oh yeah, it's got nothing to do with it.
Check.
Like, oh my God, it's you lot.
Have a heart rate monitor, see.
Oh no, it's literally on my arm. It's going to be saying to me, "You're overexerting yourself.
Oh no!
Stop running a marathon." And I'm like, I'm literally having a chat with people. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, honestly, a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us. So, Amy, do you just want to tell us a little bit about who you are and some of the work that you do and how, we've come to be together in this conversation?
Well, I'm an accessibility and inclusion consultant. So I speak to organisations about how they can create structures and procedures to make sure that everyone is included, marginalised groups especially. I am of the belief that if you design for the minority, the majority is served.
Yeah.
And if you continue to ignore that, your organisation, your business will only pay for it later. So stop it.
Tell him, website done. Website done, stop it. That's it.
Just stop it and see what happens. If you were to design for the people that aren't in the room right now, and if you don't know how to do that, maybe invite some in. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So listen to what you're missing out on. So I'm a freelance consultant for that sort of thing. Things like HR policy and review to ensure that those steps are put into standard practice. Because if you don't actively put those in, the barriers remain. And the people on the other side of the barriers can't remove them. So this whole pull your socks up idea and see if you can overcome the, no. The barriers need to be removed by the people who hold them. And they're the people who I try to speak to.
How, just out of interest, how are you received? You said those are the people you tried to speak to. How receptive are people of these?
It's a really interesting exchange. So I did a master's in psychodynamic consulting at the Tavistock, which means that it is so interesting because you're acknowledging that people have an emotional life before they come to work. Yeah. And what they bring through the door are their history of relationships, their defenses against their anxieties, their fears, and how they mask them. And sometimes that means I'm going to stay safe by keeping everything the same. And one of the difficulties of being in diversity and inclusion is a lot of practitioners' backgrounds are in things like advocacy or lived experience. So it can be emotionally very draining because what we're trying to do is just do it for humanity, just do it for the right thing. What I've noticed is that that's not always the reason why people bring in diversity practitioners. They want more money. Yeah. So let's be honest about it. Well, our business is plateauing. Plus there's an award going up for diverse recruiters. So how do we get that? How do we solve diversity in a year? And it's not because you want more minority voices in the room. It's so that you can tick some boxes, right? Which again, be honest about it. And you ask how I have been received. A lot of it is making sure that somebody is not feeling attacked or labelled because of their practices. And it's very difficult to admit when you've done something wrong. We don't like it. We don't like the fact that, oh, you're right, my whole team is white, but I'm not racist. So that's not what I'm saying. Yeah. This is why the procedures really help. If I just put these in place, they're a higher truth. And as long as you follow these things, your likelihood of recruiting from minority backgrounds is going to be a lot higher. So it's almost it's almost a case of making sure that kind of the real change maker, so either the leader or the HR person, it's just me and them. So everyone else leaves the room, and it's like, let me understand what's stopping you. What are you honouring by not making this change? What are you trying to stay true to, and what are you scared of is on the other side? So if we try to target more early, like care leavers, for example, or Bangladeshi women to recruit into your organisation, what are you scared of that's going to happen? And what do you think the impact is if you don't make this change? So approaching with curiosity, no judgment, and an acknowledgement of like, it's in your best business interest.
Yeah.
Because the data has been proved for decades that minority inclusion not only improves like problem solving, innovation, but also profit for your organization. And yet the change still isn't being made. So something is in the way. So it's my interest to go, let's just see what's behind this.
I love that. And that, somebody said this statement to me a while ago no, I said this statement. Firstly, meet people where they're at, and we always talk about that in our work. And this is what the other person said to me: connect.
Was
with
that me or
people.
Nads? Or?
No, it was actually a friend of mine. But connect with people's why, because if we're able to kind of connect with, okay, why is this important to you as an individual or to you as an organisation, then that can be the seed of making change. So I love that.
Completely agree. Understanding someone's motivation is a way to get them to do the thing you need them to do. I come from a background of performance and comedy, and I used to be a theatre director. So I need to know how to get you from this side of the stage to the other, or to get them to feel angry in this. So understanding what you need to say in order to get them to do something is really helpful. So one of the things that can be done in an organisation is doing a questionnaire by Carla, who is a philosophy and consultant from the States, Kahler, and he identified 5 drivers: hurry up, be perfect, be strong, and a couple of others which I've forgotten, but they're very insightful. You do a questionnaire. Oh, try harder is one, because that's mine. You do a questionnaire and you recognise what it is that you need people to think about you. So the try harder is an interesting one, because it's like, I might not achieve it, but I just need you to know that I've tried. And that would mean that you would need to say something different to me than you would to somebody who is driven by being quick at something. So if I was talking to a leader who needs to be seen as really strong, I'd be like, it takes a strong leader to make these choices. And so it's manipulation. Sure. But how else are you going to make people do stuff that they've not been brave enough to do yet?
And going for those motivations, though, as you said, and it will be different for different people, because we talk a lot about that. Like for some, it will be the social justice, like I genuinely believe in it and values, but for others it might be the business case, and it's kind of finding out what motivates people as well. Because as you said, there is loads of research. So even if people are not that on board with it, the business case often for leaders is like, okay, well, can't argue with that.
You need to find an empathy point. And if they don't know what it's like to struggle socially or because of your class or race, then they're not gonna care. But if you go, if you do this, you'll have more money and your team will work better. And it's not just about employee engagement, it's about employee empowerment, which then brings employee inspiration, which is then going to improve all of the problem solving and the innovation and money. Like, let's be honest about it. It doesn't always, the social justice thing isn't always the answer. It's annoying.
I was like, I was going to go off on a tangent about your theatre.
I was going to answer.
This is my own brain. I need to focus. Bring me back.
I was going to go on a tangent about comedy, because
all
I'm
of it.
also a comic. No, I'm not.
I'm just hilarious in my own time.
And it's all free, everyone.
I do say that, so you're going to have to invoice me.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so much. We were saying, like, we all like love your whole kind of Instagram vibe, and it sounds like we were like we're all having a little bit of a kind of look. And I think, you talk about living while tired because of long COVID, but you still rock. And we were thinking about some of the sort of strategies and tools that you kind of use to navigate it? Because I think you share things on there, but I think it'd be so helpful for others to kind of hear it as well, to kind of how you'd still do that and still navigate that and rock.
Thank you very much.
And you got some really good, you probably can't see them, listeners, but some really good rock rings on here. I particularly like this middle one.
Look, you just have to.
It
Okay,
is-
so here's the thing, right? When you lose 90% of your energy, you have to figure out what it is that still feels like the corners of you.
Yeah.
And I would be dressing like this if I wasn't leaving the house today, because I need to feel like me, right?
Yeah.
Because so much of what I had attached to my identity has completely changed, and the values that I had put on what I could contribute to society and to my friends and to my family don't really exist in the same way. And one of the difficulties about acquiring a disability or experiencing any kind of loss, which I think everybody has in the pandemic, but also just in life, is that you need to spend some time with what you've lost, but then also the value that you've kind of attached to that. So it would be very easy for me to go, I've lost all of my energy, I'm completely useless and of no value. It would be very easy to do that, because anybody with a disability is spoken of as if they are a leech on society, that they're lying down in the Western capitalist system is lazy rather than restful and rejuvenation. To be candid, something that privilege has afforded me is space and time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have children that live at home. I've been believed and supported by my family. Do not underestimate the power of belief. If somebody tells you I'm sick and I can't do it, believing them is the greatest gift. And I know a lot of people who've acquired a chronic condition, and it's hard to think that you have a sickness if you look this good. So you have
Hey, go on.
right? But
Yes.
I have been able to recover, to leave work, to take my time, because of privilege. And it is my duty to actively seek out different perspectives in order to serve those who don't have the same access. Because there are so many people who can't stop work, who are burning themselves out and feel exhausted and are denying themselves joy because of the stigma of admitting that you have a disability, or admitting that you need a walking stick. So on Instagram, one of the first pinned videos is 3 reasons I use a stick, because there's so much resistance against that acceptance. And one of the things that I've done is to actively seek out different perspectives. Like when this happened, it completely threw me. And people have been through worse, right? So you seek out different perspectives to understand how else I can look at this. And it will be something like the Eastern philosophy of embracing a life of stillness and giving thanks for rest, and knowing that you aren't lazy or ungrateful or taking the piss. You are doing this because it is a necessary part of your life. And capitalism forces us to forget that we have bodies.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have nap pods in our offices, and we, for some reason, have to work from 8 until 6. Who does that? Like,
Yeah.
what's that?
Agreed.
And can't just chill out or turn the lights down or something, like, or have plants. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So the adjustment is really important. It's a daily practice. So my strategies are daily. I don't have
Yeah.
goals anymore, because goals are over there,
Yeah.
as if the best version of me is not here right now. So I have rituals, I have habits, which are sacred. It's a journaling practice, it's a mantra practice, and it's making sure that I'm giving myself grace rather than seeking external validation, which is a whole other flip of how we do stuff. The biggest thing that I have found to help with my mental health is a gratitude practice. Completely. And I was doing this before I got sick in the lockdown. I was managing a team. It was extremely stressful. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do more. I wasn't doing enough, and trying to solve a global pandemic somehow. And just no pressure. It's a problem about being like a high achieving good girl. It's just but I can, I can be the solution to everybody. No, you can't, and it's enough. But the idea of the root of anxiety is feeling of lack. there's a deficit. I'm not enough, I've not done enough. And the action of gratitude is I am enough, I have enough, and I've done enough. And giving thanks every day for the things that you have around you, be it the love of your family or a radiator that you can turn on or a really nice fitting pair of leather trousers, you acknowledge that the abundance that you still have. So you can acknowledge what you've lost, but you also acknowledge what you still have. And that's the kind of vibe I try to bring to Instagram, because I have accepted that I need a walking stick because it was too tiring to go down the end of the road. I've accepted that I need a wheelchair if I'm going anywhere further than 100 meters. It's not possible.
Yeah.
If I crash energy-wise while I'm out, I simply can't move. I have to just wait for my body to be ready to move, which is why I'm in a constant state of energy conservation, and making sure that you're still accessing joy. You deserve joy. It's part of healing. It's also part of literally being alive.
Yeah.
And I get free tickets now. Like,
Oh, what?
yeah, no, let me tell you. Yeah, so okay, there's so much admin when it comes to being disabled that you have to prove yourself
Yeah.
over and over again. But once you get the blue badge and the access card and the Nimbus badge and all of these things, you can bring a free carer and you start going, oh, what if I have a wheelchair? I don't have to queue. Okay, well, so Thorpe Park was amazing.
Yeah.
But it's a really important thing to be able to access that creativity and recognizing who you still are. Mourn what you've lost. There's no coffin for the stuff I've lost, right? The
Yeah.
future that I had relied on, the version of me that I had been planning to be. I've had to release that and also recognize what that makes space for. This new, much slower walking, much more wise version of myself who is trying to be in the present much more than I am trying to be, because I'm enough here,
Yeah.
and taking that each day. Again, it's a daily practice. It's tough though, man. I've been humbled big time,
Yeah.
especially trying to get back to things that I wanted to do, for example, work. And you realize like that it's taken me 3 years to be able to do this, to prepare my energy, to have faith in what I have to contribute, and then being able to plan the rest afterwards. So putting on top of that, working, reading, advising, consulting, writing things, that takes that out of me too. And so you're constantly humbled by the limits that you have to keep meeting, which is why that daily practice of enough and gratitude and abundance is so important.
Yeah, and it's just listening to you speak is so powerful, because one of the things that was coming to my head is that how do you keep this consistent, and how do you keep up with the daily practices, and like, where, I guess the question I have is like, where does that kind of drive and that energy come from to kind of keep that up? Did you have that before? Was it this kind of new world that you're in that helps you to keep that?
That's a really good question, and it's a really poignant one as well, because discipline is quite important when it comes to this kind of thing, but because you're serving your own body without an external routine. I'm not getting up for work anymore. So how do you serve yourself, particularly if your energy levels aren't always in the same place every day? So I can't have a schedule, I can't have a routine, but I can have a ritual. And there's a difference with that. It's not like at 9 o'clock I do this every day. It's like whenever I wake up, I do this every day. So the routine comes from me. But in terms of whether this was a new thing, I used to have a physical challenge every year of something I hadn't done before, so that I could, because the gym is boring, right? So I wanted to have a target of something I'd not done before. So I had a proper training schedule, and then I could do something at the end of it, raise money for charity, wear a Wonder Woman outfit, everyone cheers my name, and then I never have to do it again. Right? So I did like a half marathon, like a Hackney half, and a triathlon. I did a boxing match. That was the last thing. It was amazing.
Wow.
I was so tough.
Yeah.
I lost really well. And so that discipline, that thing of, I just need to add another mile. I need to, whatever it is, I need to get up on Tuesday and do that thing. I can't push through anymore, and there isn't a goal that I'm aiming for at the end anymore, but that commitment to yourself that's what that was about. And that's what this is about. So I can't train for a new thing. I can't push through anymore. It's really like we're rewarded for being too busy or too much or going above and beyond. Like all of these phrases, like going above and beyond, hit the ground running, like these do not apply to me anymore. They're also ableist statements.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not hitting any, I'm not running anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hop on a call. Thank you very much. I'm going to jump in the shower is a terribly bad idea. So just kind of slowing that kind of thinking down, but going, okay, it's going to take the same mindset as it did to go down to the gym in Victoria to train for a boxing match 5 nights a week, as it is to wake up every morning and write 3 sides of paper. And sometimes I don't even get to wake up in the morning. Sometimes it's the evening because that's how much I needed to sleep. But the first thing I do is to write those sides. So making sure that the commitment is to yourself, and it's simply a non-negotiable. You get into the habit and you can kind of reward yourself in ways where it's like, oh, turns out I didn't realize I was worried about that. And that's now out of your head. And so your goal is your own peace.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so you kind of touched on it and mentioned that you're working in the diversity and inclusion space with a specific focus on disabilities and accessibility in the workplace. So firstly, if you could perhaps start with a definition of disability, because I think sometimes people take it for granted, but from your perspective, what's your definition of disability? And secondly, can you say a bit about how you came to this work and how you support employers?
There's 2 models of disability. There's the medical model, which means that my condition stops me from being able to succeed in this society. And there's the social model, which is where the society has not been designed for you to succeed. So I have been disabled by your design. And I think that's a very important perspective, particularly for anyone who designs a procedure or a physical space needs to take into consideration. So it's like, I was disabled by the steps on the way in here. I had to, and the thing about something not being accessible is that I am disadvantaged. I cannot be at my best because I have to expend more energy in order to just be in the same room as you than you have to. And while I've always been an advocate and an ally for people who aren't in the room, or been trying to make sure that the youth programs I used to design, for example, were focused on the people who are in the minority group, either through neurodivergence, access to opportunities from the global majority, or from socially underserved areas. That was always my purpose. So being able to repurpose that to a consultancy role where I'm speaking from a lived experience, and that it kind of validates my message a little bit more. It kind of repositions the white savior assumption, I think, which can be done in a lot of social justice spaces. If I come from a middle class background and I'm trying to make things better, increase opportunities for people. And there's something about validating the message if it's like, I understand on some level. Like, I have a lot of invisible others as well in terms of my identity, which you have to kind of constantly come out and tell people. But at the same time, I walk through this society pretty privileged. And having a walking stick, on the whole, I've been treated very well. But you really notice the barriers that people just simply don't know. So being able to draw attention to that without judgment is very important. So I understand that you didn't intend that, but here's the impact on someone like me if I hear that, and making sure that I'm giving space for that learning is really important. You asked me how I support employers. Understanding how long change takes has been a lesson I think more of the mainstream people have recognized since the pandemic. And I think I certainly noticed it in organizations' responses to the Black Lives Matter movement, where they were like, well, if we all wear a wristband and we all say these things and put statements and stuff, then we've solved racism. And then 2 years later, more black people were leaving those organizations because of the tokenistic nature of those statements. And it shows how much ongoing work is needed. And ongoing work means you have to release your ego. You're not going to be right and you're not going to solve it. And it has to be ongoing. And that's why I speak so much about rituals rather than goals, because you can say, we want to be able to recruit more people from this background by this time, but it has to be a much more modest goal, because the amount of change that's going to take and the amount of shift in mindset of your organization trusting you and sticking by your side and believing that that change is going to benefit them at some point takes a lot more work than I think you realize. So part of being, the experience of being slowed down so much, that humility that you have to adopt in terms of what you think you can achieve in the time that you can, you have to release that, particularly in a capitalist society where quicker, harder, faster, longer, like, is more rewarded. And I can't rush. I physically can't. My brain simply won't do it. When Nadia picked me up from the front of the building, we had to, like, we were proper, like, strutting our way down the corridor because I can't walk any faster.
It was a strut. It was so, I was like, I'm here for this. Like,
it's like a low
lovely
funk bass line.
Yeah.
Ongoing soundtrack. But it means that I'll get there, but I cannot damage myself in the journey.
Yeah.
And so many, particularly this year, I've seen a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion burnout. And I mentioned before, it's often taken on by people who have experienced discrimination. So it feels like part of your soul. And being able to care for yourself along the way is really key.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and then some as well.
Thank you, Amy. And yeah, there was something in that, you know, when we were walking, and while I was like, you know, kind of matching your pace, I was asking myself, why do I rush around so much? I'm constantly like with my daughter, come on, and actually, why? We're gonna get the thing done.
Yeah.
We're gonna get it done. So yeah, it's a real kind of moment of, for me, like, just reflection, and just in that tiny little space of time there. But so something that I wanted to ask is, you know, thinking about working with employees and you know, in terms of creating work cultures that are more accessible, what would you say are 3 kind of really important things for employers to kind of hold in mind when thinking about disabilities and accessibility?
The first is to not assume. Don't assume their abilities or their limits, because disabilities are vastly different. They can be cognitive, physical, energy, internal. So don't assume. Start with flexible working based around their needs, not yours, right? We have, for some reason, still gone on with this idea that we should all start work in the morning. I don't know why this continues to be, when it proves time and again that not everyone's brains work at that time, right?
Usually it's like,
Like, even there's been research in sixth forms and schools where it's like their teenage brains are literally not ready at 8:30. Let's start at 11. Like, give them like, why are we trying to, like, stop it? Like, stop it.
Yes,
so many t-shirts are going to be made after this
to do
episode, Amy. So many great.
So flexible working based around, in a way that supports them to perform at their best, right? And let me reiterate this: if you design for the minority, the majority benefits, right? So if you're like, okay, so this particular staff member, their brain fog starts descending at about 30 minutes. So let's all have meetings that are no longer than 30 minutes. Who needs a 3-hour meeting? Honestly, right? So can we just stop this? Thank you. Agendas ahead of time. You were kind enough to send me the questions ahead of time so I could prepare. Nadia also sent me a picture of this setup so that I could get used to the idea of the room I was going to be in. That reduces the psychic friction, which means that if my energy is constantly being, like, used for so many things, I don't have to get used to a new image. And it's just little things like that. Like, I messaged Nadia yesterday saying, okay, my energy's quite low. I'll be wearing a mask and I'd really appreciate a sofa because it means that I'll be able to be a bit more relaxed. That is a reasonable adjustment. What might, and particularly as it was the night before this interview, what might have been unreasonable, for example, is if I'd asked everybody to do a COVID test the night before. If it was a bit more time, for example, then it could be more reasonable, but it's really important that it goes both ways. And reasonable adjustment in order for me to be able to bring my best self today, these things like the cab, the understanding of the mask, the fist bumps at arrival, the sofa, means that I can not have to worry about these things and just be able to focus. So it sounds a bit diva, but it is necessary, right? And then on the whole, right, people with disabilities have to navigate a society that is not designed for them. So they have to be creative problem solvers. They've got to be really brave and they've got to be really resilient just to leave the house. Their planning is phenomenal because they've had to do so much more admin in order to just access the same places that everybody else does. So it would be mad not to include them in your team.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you going to have somebody who has just been able to sort of roll out of bed and not have to think about their journey, or somebody who has had to get up early in order to get themselves into a mental state to be able to endure the journey that they've already had to book and prepare for? Like, the amount of preparation that someone with a disability has to go through in order to just leave the house or to turn on a Zoom call, they're more ready. They have to be. So that sounds like a really good staff member to me.
Yes, great staff member.
So we're coming near the end and I could listen to you all day, so thank you so much. But the question that I want to ask is a kind of a bit of a look to the future. And if we were to fast forward sort of 3 to 5 years' time, what will be happening in workplaces that tells you that there's been progress in regards to accessibility?
There are 16 million disabled people in this country. That is a quarter of the population. And it is the only minority that every single person has a chance of joining. So it makes sense for us to make it a worthwhile group to join. So they're well supported, they're well catered for, there's no stigma around it, and people can accept the needs that they have and can vocalize their needs in a way that doesn't bring judgment or shame, which is an ongoing thing. Even 3 years into my own journey, I'm still going, I don't want to have to say that, but I'm going to have to. And out of that 16 million, 53% of them are employed, compared to 83% of the not yet disabled population. That is how in some disability communities, people who aren't disabled are called not yet disabled, because who are you to say, like, I got disabled, I was very healthy before this. So an increase in employment, which would, I think, be the result of authentically flexible working as standard. Like, I can't work full time, but the value of that 1 hour that I can give instead of 8 is incredibly high. And you are denying yourself by not hiring me for that 1 hour instead of trying to force me to push myself in a way that you haven't even questioned whether it's actually efficient. So flexible working, more openly disabled people in leadership positions, please. I want pundits in wheelchairs. I want to see more people just on like reality TV shows who walk with a stick or have, and not just keep people with autism and neurodivergence to a dating show, but actually presenting the news or understanding like what it's like to live with on a day-to-day basis, because their contribution is absolutely extraordinary, and we either squirrel them away or kind of they could be served so much better. I've already talked about 30-minute meetings, plain English and job descriptions, and a genuine call out for people with disabilities and neurodivergent cognitive processing, because sometimes, particularly with the language that is used, if you need somebody who is going to go above and beyond and go the extra mile and really enthusiastic and hit the ground running, I'm not going to apply for that job, because that shows me that what you value is energy. and I'm going to feel like you're going to discriminate against me if I can't be that kind of punchy, powerful, whatever you think is necessary. Like, you don't need that. So I want job descriptions to be using role descriptions, not person descriptions. And disability leave as standard. So instead of sick leave or annual leave, which a lot of people who have chronic conditions have to use, a disability leave entitles you to have days off according to your condition. So either for appointments or if you get a flare up or a crash or something like that, because that gives equitable access to a balanced life. It's not a sick day. This is my condition day. So having disability leave is another HR implementation where it serves your whole team in a way that means that they will get equitable access to a properly balanced life. So disability leave as standard is going to be key for me to see.
Lovely.
Love that. The world needs more Amy.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
That's a t-shirt as well.
More
And look, and then on the back, stop it.
Stop.
Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Amy, thank you so much. Even just, not only just kind of like hearing you speak, but even just, the process of inviting you here and you educating us on how to kind of best support and help it's just been so valuable. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you so much.
Can I make a real point about how cared for I felt? And I really appreciate it, because if you haven't had to deal with this kind of stuff before, it can be quite jarring. It can bring up stuff for yourself, or you might get a bit anxious about it or whatever, but you gave me plenty of time. You asked what I needed and you listened. And it meant that I could feel safe when I came here. And if someone feels safe, then they feel they can play. And that's all we want to do. Anyone, right? So thank you for making me feel safe and for letting me play.
Amy, mate, you're bringing tears to my eyes. Oh my goodness. All right, let's wrap this up. So we have been 3 social workers talking about social matters with the incredible Amy. Check her out. Oh, we should ask, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Long COVID Rockstar on Instagram, which is where I show a lot of how to leave the house, but also how to recover from it. And I try to be as authentic as possible in terms of I have had to rest for 3 days before I went to this gig, and then I rested for 3 days after, but it's worth it. And this is what it looks like on the way. And on LinkedIn, you can find me Amy Butterworth, and I think I'm an accessibility consultant, but if you look up Rockstar, I'll probably be there as well.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have been 3 social workers talking about social matters with Amy. You can follow us on social media, on Instagram at Matters Podcast and on LinkedIn at Social Matters. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.